So in the future, if college interviews are still online, there's two types of interviews that I know of. One of them is informational interviews, and the second one is alumni interviews. Both of them are a good enough excuse for you to want to join your ancestors. So the difference between alumni interviews and informational interviews is that alumni interviews, around a half to 3/4 of the time is them asking you questions, and the remainder of the time is you asking them questions. Meanwhile, informational interviews is basically all of the time you asking them questions, and they usually will inform you via email which type of interview they're looking for. So a lot of people ask if it's good or bad if I don't get an interview, and that depends. You see, there's two different criteria for picking interviews. One of them is your region, and the second one is your candidacy. Simply put, if there's no interviewers looking for applicants to have a stare down in moments of incredibly awkward silence, then you're in luck, or unlucky, because that depends on your candidacy. Usually when they ask for an interview, that's because they think your academics are superb, or they really find something in your application that's really attractive. And because they find something really attractive, they want to interview you. But the thing is, essentially, if your application is horrible, they will just discard your application, and your ancestors will also disown you because you failed. And if you're too good, they'll just send you an acceptance letter. But the thing is, most people are in the middle, and they just need more information. So that's why you have the interview. Anyways, this is just a guess. I don't know if this is correct. So if you ask, is getting an interview good or bad, I can't really answer you. Anyways, let's just get into how I prepared for the interview, just in case you do happen to chance yourself upon the interview. Essentially, you want to binge watch videos and just write down any really special niche, like quirky things. It kind of just shows that you have put in a lot of effort. You technically have. You did binge watch videos. That's technically counted as putting effort in, right? But you just want to hype yourself up, because if you do hype yourself up, they can kind of tell, you know? So like I said, there's two parts to an interview. The first part is them asking you questions, and the second part is you asking them questions. Unless you're in an informational interview, then it's just you asking them questions. First, you essentially want a 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and just what you've done throughout your life, all in 30 seconds. It's even harder than college app essays. And what you want to do is you want to have keywords. You want to have these main words that you know they will latch onto. You know they will try to ask you questions about that thing, so you can reverse psychology them and have them join their ancestors. Big brain moments. But essentially, if you do mention things that are attractive, you know they will ask you questions on that, and therefore you can prepare for those. In most scenarios, they do not have your application or your essays. At least that's what they told us. I don't know if they do. And essentially, they will also ask you to bring up anything that might have affected your application. For example, I brought up how my extracurriculars changed because of the pandemic in 2020. So that's why my extracurriculars prior to the pandemic and post-pandemic are different. Now, you might not have that situation, but if you do, I recommend for you to volunteer that information yourself in the beginning rather than wait until they ask. And that should be the first 30 seconds. You should be clear on that You should be clear on the blah blah speech, elevator speech. Next up, you need to try to memorize a list of the 5 best things of the school. Maybe you can get these through binge watching those videos, or you can get these through Google. It really doesn't matter as long as you memorize these 5 specific things. It doesn't have to be super specific. Like, you don't have to say, I really like that chair on the 3rd floor of this so-and-so library. Like, you don't need to do that. That's exaggeration, as I'm sure you know. And also, don't talk about the prestige or the rank of anything. So next up, you need to prepare for if they ask you what you do in your free time. Like for me, I just say like I play D&D with my friends because it helps me with my creativity, you know, blah blah blah. Just fill them with stuff you think they want to hear. They have to be true, of course, but essentially you want them to hear who you are and your perspective on things, you know? Okay, so you've basically prepped for most of the interview. Now it's that remaining 1/2 to 3/4 portion where you're asking them questions. Or if this is an informational interview, this is the whole thing of what you'll be doing. You need to do a lot of things in informational interviews. Essentially, you need to memorize specific questions about the school and try to make it so it's like step by step. That way it's easier for you to memorize and it's easier for them. Generally speaking, what you want to do is to stump the interviewer. At least that's what I've been told. I'm not sure if it worked. Sample questions would be, how did blank school get you to where you are today? What was your childhood aspirations? And did those change when you went to blank? And in the way, if you want to, you can ask them who they are and find a way to tie it to the school, how it influenced them, things like that. I have heard of another strategy of getting your interviewers more sentimental. And because they get more sentimental, your interview would just become better, you know? Okay, so you now finished prepping for your interview, and the last step is for you to just send an email to your interviewer, just saying, you know, checking in with them, saying, thank you so much for having this interview, taking the time to have this interview with me. Attached below is my resume, just in case you need anything, and just kind of give thanks and etc. Most interviewers will respond to your emails. However, there are a select few who will decide to ghost you and pretend you never existed to waste their time. No, but for real, don't worry if you're not chosen for an interview. Northwestern did not choose me for an interview. I did not get any interviews from Northwestern, and I know there's a lot of Northwestern alumni in Texas. In fact, the 8 colleges that interviewed me that appeared in the thumbnail, I assume I'm going to put because clickbait, they all rejected me. At the end of my interview journey, I was already like a god at that point at interviews. It's just, I've been asked the question so many times. It's just, sometimes you will get curveballs, and sometimes you'll just have to adapt to them, and sometimes you will fail drastically. Like this one question, this UPenn interviewer asked me, they were like, did you take any courses in entrepreneurship? Because I mentioned Study Bubbly, and that kind of being like an entrepreneurial thing. And then I was like, but if you're worried about things like that happening, you should go check out my video on tips for seniors, and also another video which I will link down in the description if I can find it. I would recommend everyone to apply for interviews, even if it's just informational interviews, because you don't know the college process, and even if it's just demonstrated interest, they say they don't look at it, but do they really look at it? I don't know if we really know. So just apply to any interviews, every and all interviews, see which ones you get. So just to be on the safe side, apply for interviews, don't disappoint your ancestors, don't subscribe. I love all of you. Bye.